28th of July. That's next week, barely a week to go.
The electoral program for by-election in Soroti East is progressing well. We started off on 10th of June, and we are progressing well. We've gone through the preliminary activities, updating the register, displaying the register, of course, along the way, recruiting the staff who have been participating in these activities, engaging stakeholders. We had stakeholder meetings. Of course, political parties were mobilized to participate in the program, prepare their candidates. We had nominations yesterday. And today we have the harmonization of campaign meetings. This is where we meet the nominated candidates and they present their draft programs and we harmonize them to ensure that they do not clash, they don't meet at the same venue, on the same day, at the same time, which creates problems. So behind the scenes, we're also working on other issues that relate to organizing and conducting the by-election, the preparation of materials that are required. And now, very soon, now that we have candidates, we'll be preparing ballot papers. So now, part as Electoral Commission, we set, we now have candidates. The by-election has a face. So there are faces to the by-elections, and the electorate is now able to follow the candidates and choose whom they want come Thursday, 28th. So we are set as Electoral Commission, and the program is rolling on according to schedule. And we believe that working together with stakeholders, we will accomplish this.
Well, what is the fate of the final register that up to now hasn't been released?
Compiling the register, we used the register yesterday for nomination. We updated it. We have a final register. It has 36,481 registered voters. So we have a register for this by-election. We can't have an exercise like this without a register. It has been going through processes. The stakeholders are aware, and we have a final register. We used it for purposes of nomination, and we will use it for voting. And the nominated candidates will now have a copy for use by their agents at polling stations. So there is a register, and there should be no worry and fear.
Well, this by-election arises out of the gross negligence of the Electoral Commission that failed to annex the wards of Alowet and Opieli. Did you pick any lesson from this blunder?
You are wrong. You are wrong, Simon. You are wrong to say that there was negligence on the part of the Electoral Commission. If you look at the matter and how it came, the correct position on the matter is that in October 2020, court ordered the Electoral Commission and placed the two wards of Alowet and Opia in Soroti West. This was a court order, court that removed them from Soroti East, and there was an order of injunction restraining the Electoral Commission. If you remember how those things went from conducting nominations, and you remember that time we had started nominations for elective positions in Soroti City East and West. So the same position was confirmed by court in its final judgment, which was on the 26th of November 2020. And if you go back to that, you will see the court records are very clear. So the decision by the Commission to hold elections with the two wards in Soroti West was in accordance with a lawful court order, which was in force at that time. So you cannot say that the Electoral Commission was negligent. That is wrong, and it misleads our voters. So it was after the elections that one of the candidates in the elections petitioned High Court, if you follow the matter, how it has progressed. And then the court order was reversed, and it reinstated Alowet and Opia in Soroti City East. And the Commission was ordered to organize a by-election, the two wards in Soroti East, City East, and this is the by-election which we are organizing. So when the Commission complies with the lawful order in force at a time, you cannot say that there was negligence. That was compliance. And that's what we did, and it's on record. So I think we need to put that record right.
The same court faulted the Electoral Commission for this oversight in the ruling, in the Supreme Court ruling.
Simon, we have complied with the court orders at all times. And I've narrated to you the details of this matter, and it is on record.
Well, along the way, so far, have you realized any glitches that you need to resolve ahead of the 28th?
Of course, as you organize elections, you identify issues which you address, but we've not had candidates. So now we have candidates. We are meeting them today to harmonize their campaign program. So far, so good. We've been addressing issues that have been coming up in the earlier parts of the electoral process. For example, when you're compiling a register and you have these applications for transfer, applications for, recommendations for deletions, they become issues to address lawfully and legally. So we've been doing that through the established mechanism. Now we have candidates, and we're harmonizing the program today, and one of the appeals we are making is to comply with the campaign guidelines so that we avoid, issues that come up and complicate the electoral process, or even, create chaotic situations and other ugly scenes that we do not want to see as Electoral Commission and, of course, as the people of Soroti City East.
Well, thank you very much. If you could stay on the line. Mr. Kabuleta, thank you for coming in. We are shining a spotlight on the Electoral Commission. Do you really believe they're up to the mark as this election looms?
In honesty, I think one of the most contentious things everywhere in all elections in Uganda has been the voters' register. Because the last one, for instance, I'll give the presidential one where I was a candidate, had 18.1 million registered voters. And I saw a National Population Agency saying that there are 17 million Ugandans who are, I think, 16 years and above, 17 million, much less 18. So we are saying if there are 17 million Ugandans who are above 17, where did the Electoral Commission get 18.1 million Ugandans? There would have to be that many Ugandans above 18, and even then, there would have to be that many Ugandans who are actual registered voters, because there are so many people who are of that age and are not registered voters. So, and that was contentious all the way through. And then there was the issue of polling stations, which kept on changing as you go along. And this is typical of Electoral Commission, because it was 33,000 at the beginning. By the time we go to the election, it was 34,600 polling stations. Now that's a nightmare for people who want to have agents at all polling stations, because you are thinking about 33,000, a big number, whichever you look at it, to have agents all across. Then as the elections progress, you find out that you have an extra 1,600 polling stations to cater for with agents. Now that can be a bit of a nightmare, and that is for, but I would want to think that it's a bit less disorganized when it comes to, parliamentary level, because these are smaller cells, and perhaps there is less power of incumbency and things like that. So I would like to think they would be more organized here, and a bit more of, so the spotlight is on them, honestly. First of all, the issue of those two, Elowit and OPL, but he's explained it and says that they were actually shifted from one, and I think his explanation was...
How big a task can running a by-election of this nature be, especially for the Electoral Commission that has severally been pointed out as being either incompetent or lacking in so many aspects?
No, first of all, it's very difficult. Even being devil's advocate in this case, the reality is that there are so many changes, because the whole demarcations of counties, cities, change very fast, and there have been far too many changes. Now, remember, Electoral Commission is preparing for the elections a long way ahead of time, but in that time, cities are declared, different parts of a place are now city. It was a nightmare, by the way, for me also, when I was looking for signatures, because I would find that I have signatures from Masaka district, and they are all Masaka city. And somehow I thought they were the district, then they are the city. And you take them there, they say, no, these are not Masaka district, if you labeled Masaka district. And you realize that the demarcations are not that clear. So you'd have to go far away from the city to be absolutely sure that now you're in the district. And if it's not very, very definite, and especially since if it is done 2 years or less before elections, because that's when now EC would have to really, really, put up polling stations, decide for all sorts of elections that are going to be held in those all the way down to local council elections. So it's a nightmare for them with all these divisions. I hope, though, that this is the end of the divisions. But of course, I know it is not going to be. And jettisoning of this and a bit of gerrymandering and so on. And it's going to continue all the way to 2026. I don't know for whatever reason. Usually it's for resource reason, but Electoral Commission has to work around that in a very short time as you get to the election.
Well, the Electoral Commission seems to vindicate themselves of any mess or any blunders in organizing the 2021 elections in the Soroti East area. And the places under contention are Alouette and Opieli. But like Bukenyi explains, it's not the EC that is to blame for this. Do you think there was a bit of negligence either on the EC or any other player?
First of all, if the court ruling was November 2020 and the election was January 2021, that is very little time for EC to adjust itself to the new ruling when they have been preparing materials and what in accordance to what they knew before. And then there was an injunction. So the ruling comes just 2 months before the election. Now, in honesty, that is not so easy, you understand, because you've already allocated, first of all, you've already printed, electoral materials and demarcated all those places. Now you have to shift them from one place to the other. So maybe it was expected that something like this would come out because of how soon it happened before the election and how quickly Electoral Commission had to adjust. They are not the most competent body, to be honest. But then, even by by whichever standards, 2 months before an election, which they are going to be conducting elections all across the country, and there is a court ruling about 2 small cells within Soroti City, one moving from this side to the other side. That's not easy.
Well, we're joined by Mr. Okello Jabweli. He's counsel and an elections analyst. Thank you for joining us and a very good morning.
Thank you. Good morning, Simon and viewers.
How much of a task would it be for the Electoral Commission to organize a free and fair election within just this time frame? It's just barely a week to an election, but the tempers are flaring already.
Thank you, Simon, and good morning, viewers, once again, and good morning, Joseph, my old friend and colleague at the New Vision. It's an interesting question. What I would say is that, first of all, in the context of what we've become as Uganda, the EC will go through the motions and produce a winner. Whether you gave it 2 months or 1 year, I don't see whether much will change. So 1 week or 2 weeks can produce the kind of outcomes we've gotten used to. So that for me, that's not really the issue. The issue for me goes down to the aspirations of Ugandans as expressed in the Constitution. If you go to Article 60, 61, and so on, the Constitution envisaged that elections shall be regular, free, and fair. The point about being regular every 5 years and so on, I think there's no problem. There's no contention there. We go through the motions every 5 years. We are, okay? Free, you are an observer yourself. You've been a protagonist in elections. Our elections can hardly pass for a test of being free. And don't tell me about courts and so on. And again, we've lowered our standards so much. Elections are not free. and certainly they are not fair. I was a candidate in the last election. I know I speak from authority. I've been in the EC. You saw the Kenyans are going through an election right now. But a Ugandan will be forgiven to think that in Kenya there are no security forces, there's no police, there's no army to, you know. Elections are supposed to be a civil affair where citizens get a chance to choose from competing visions for the country. But in our case, elections are a military affair. In fact, yesterday, as you saw, the nominations going on, the budget for by-elections, when I used to be in EC, used to be range about 70 million for by-elections. Now, it's in excess of 300, 400 million. And half of that, even then, used to be for security. Mm-hmm. Ugandans, again, need to examine whether we need the amount of militarization of elections. We pay people to provide security, and on polling day, all they provide is the opposite of security. And we sanitize that. The losers gnash their teeth, the winners are feted until the next one. But we need to ask, if you see the quality of elections from CA 1994 under Mzee Stephen Akabwa, I don't know whether he's still alive, to now, in those days, elections in a village, in a rural sleeper village somewhere in where I come from, in Tororo, would not require guns, and an elder, a retired teacher, a retired agriculturalist, someone with authority in the village would stand there and say, please be in the line. Please we are going to be progressively. And that was the fairest election. You can quote me from the CA, qualitatively, we've gotten worse. And what passes on as elections these days is mere routine. And I think we have to go back to the requirement under the Constitution. It should be free and fair, not just any election. Because now we're being served anything that looks like an election, it passes. And it's not right. In fact, if as I conclude just on a general principles, an election is a process. Of course, in this case, normally within the EC, they would plan for the general election, plan for, in case there's a rerun of the presidential election, there's the budget, always. Don't ask me what happens to that budget afterwards. They would even plan for budget for a number of by-elections, knowing that court, I think they also know that their processes are not foolproof. So they would budget for this. So it would have been planned for, that they will have a number, okay? And then,
is this by-election, before I get back to Paul Bukenya, is this by-election revealing anything about the competence of the Electoral Commission and their ability to handle things decisively?
You see, the issue is not so much, it's competence, yes, but for me I would use the word accountability. The Constitution of Uganda under Directive Principle number 26, Directive Principle of State Policy, and number 26, talks of accountability and requires state institutions to be accountable for their actions. I'm sorry to say that the EC has been shielded from accountability. They can come, do whatever they want, organize and go away. Say you go to court. I saw what happened in Kayunga, the LC5 by-elections. You could tell very glaringly, come polling day, there are people who come to disrupt. You know, Moro, you saw people in the private number plates taxis and abducting people and facilitating an environment of cooking up results. If these kind of things are not talked about, we risk having computer-generated leaders in this country. Someone sits somewhere, disregards what the voters are doing, and produces results. And the security, the military, they will sanitize, beat up everybody, and I think time has come, we need to be honest to ourselves.
Well, Mr. Paul Bukenya, on several occasions, the EC has been accused of just looking away as security messes up elections. What kind of guarantee do you have that this time the scenarios that we've witnessed in Kayunga, Omoro, and in different areas will not occur?
Well, Simon, during elections, security has a role to play. And actually, we cannot organize elections when we are guaranteed a secure and peaceful electoral environment. So there's a place for security in elections and in by-elections for this matter. So I think we need to appreciate that. And then if there is an issue where law enforcement, Uganda police and sister agencies have gone or acted in a manner that goes beyond or does not enable free participation, that's when you have to take it on. Otherwise, people have come up and said security has no place in elections, there should be no police, you should not come up in an electoral process or in an electoral environment. I do not appreciate that the law actually provides exactly for that, you need security, you need a secure electoral environment, candidates need to be protected, the voters need to be protected, and election materials need to be protected, and election officials for that matter. So I think we need to isolate incidences where there is misconduct or what could be taken as high-handedness or abuse of a mandate. But we cannot say that security has no role or there should be no security in electoral processes. We should isolate issues and identify those particular issues and take them on, or incidences where security, there's been what you can call about violation of freedoms. So as Electoral Commission, of course, our job is to engage all these stakeholders, candidates, agents, and security to make sure that we work together to achieve a peaceful electoral process. And this is one of the things we are doing this morning, harmonizing campaign meetings. How are you going to move? How should you move? Compliance with campaign guidelines, because a campaign period or you being nominated as a candidate does not take away your responsibility to follow the laws of the land, the rules, traffic rules, or all these other guidelines that have been set up by the Electoral Commission. Definitely, you are not, just because you're a candidate doesn't take away your responsibility and the responsibility of voters and candidates' agents from following law and order as established by the laws of Uganda. So I think we need to appreciate that and balance it, and then working together we can achieve peaceful electoral processes. That's what we set out to do. That's what we're doing this morning in Soroti City, harmonizing campaign meetings, ensure that it is complied with, and that is one way to guarantee a peaceful electoral process.
Well, you're going into this election haunted by the experience of Kayunga and Omoro, where we saw security beating up people, driving around with masked number plates, and a lot of things that were totally unpleasant. Do you imagine you have the spine to stop security from messing?
Simon used the word haunted, but what we did was to organize and conduct by-elections. If there are issues that came up, like you are mentioning there, then they need to be isolated. Otherwise, we are not haunted by anything. We organized and conducted and concluded the electoral processes. And persons who are not satisfied with the outcome of the election, of course, have a right to challenge that, including taking on cases or incidences that seem not to follow the electoral law or the guidelines. So what we are going to do, what we have set out to do is to organize and conduct the by-election in Soroti, bearing in mind the unique constituency that Soroti City East is. And we're approaching it as Soroti East. We're not haunted by anything in the past. We're not looking at any other. Of course, we learn lessons from every exercise we conduct, but each electoral process is unique, and we're going to Soroti East knowing its peculiar setting, and these are matters we also discuss with security, because like I mentioned, and I need to emphasize, we cannot organize elections unless we're sure and confirming that the electoral environment is secure. You know, you can't go out. People will not participate. That's why you cannot have a peaceful processes in times of when my senior there, Mr. Okelo Jabweri, he knows he was a journalist and he remembers a time when it was very hard to organize elections when there were during the insurgency in the north. So a secure environment is very key, and for that matter, security has a role, and we have issued clear guidelines on the role of each stakeholder, including security, definitely.
Well, thank you. Joseph Kabuleta, the issue of the credibility of the Electoral Commission has been discussed for years, for several years. How does it play out in this looming election?
First of all, I don't think the word Electoral Commission and credibility can be mentioned in the same sentence, to be honest, to be very, very honest, because even the candidates know that getting voters to cast the ballot for you is just half of the process. And if you spoke to any of the candidates out there, they know that there is something you have to put aside for the returning officer, because he knows the minute he declares you winner, the only redress is court. And in any case, court, first of all, this electoral cycle has had a record number of dismissals. I think they're trying to discourage the whole court thing. So many people, so many cases have been dismissed, first of all. Secondly, it's a costly process for somebody who has just come out of a costly election. So many people are so discouraged and they just give up on the whole thing, even when there has been a clear injustice, which is provable. For the most part, people will think, now why do I go and start spending money in court? And now the courts are generally ruling against petitioners and so on. And then also Electoral Commission, they stand to benefit from the by-election. So they win either way. So they organize a shoddy thing and they are paid for it. They are the only people actually who have that privilege. So you organize something as shoddy as Kayunga. If somebody goes to court and you have a by-election, there is a budget for that. Thank you very much. And you go ahead, and the returning officer is still going to say, thank you so much, you've gotten this amount of votes, but you have to first, oil my mustache before I declare you winner. And there have been scenarios where people who are far from being winners are declared winners. I can mention somewhere a pistol is pulled out and say, money is put here and the pistol declare me winner right now. Okay, you are the winner. Okay. Now the other person will go to court. And the votes count for nothing.
Do you agree with the notion that the Electoral Commission is overshielded from blame?
Of course it is, because it is doing its work. And the person who put it there knows it's doing its work. And now the whole idea that people have a right to
its work is to organize credible, free and fair elections.
No. Its work according to the Constitution, its work according to the person who puts them there is to organize shoddy elections and make sure that the power of incumbency, not just for himself, but for people who are of interest to him. The Electoral Commission has a big part in playing to make sure that NRM keeps a big part of its majority in Parliament. Okay? There are places where I know where they are told that we need this number of people from this district, NRM candidates, to go through. And somehow things have to happen. And security, RDCs and so on, and come and disorganize everything. And somehow the
results. You seem to assert that the Electoral Commission manufactures elections.
They do. They absolutely do. I mean, I know that. Let me tell you. You ask them themselves. In the presidential election, when I was one of few candidates, although I had no chance of winning, who sent somebody into because I went there for a reason.
Stakeholders meeting?
No, not the stakeholders meeting, to the Tally Center in Chambogo, a representative. And I made sure I sent a representative who is a top IT expert, because I wanted to know, how do you get results from across the country when there is no internet whatsoever? Now, I expected EC to say that we had our own internet somehow supplied by somebody. They didn't say that. They said they had a local area network, some kind of LAN, to wide area network rather, to get results from across. That that's impossible, okay? Because you know how wide area networks work. They have to project from one, about to another, to another, to another. It's impossible. And I knew that because I put in a petition as part of the apparent court case of Chagulanyi. So I put in an affidavit. And before the main petitioner decided to pull out the case, EC actually responded to my affidavit and said that they used wide area network. That is impossible. So it was all manufactured. And then also, my IT expert told me that all the results were coming from not more than 2 computers away. So they give you a screen there, and they say these are results as they are coming in. And that's what they are reading. But now this person goes behind the computer and sees where is the information we are getting here coming from. And you see it's coming from 1, 2, then to your computer. That cannot be coming from 146 districts. It's impossible. So it was all manufactured. And that, their answer to my affidavit absolutely proved it. Their Electoral Commission answer to my affidavit absolutely proved it beyond doubt, that all those were manufactured. The ones for, especially the presidential, totally, completely cooked, manufactured. Okay? I can say that it's very provable. Now, all I wanted was, this is my affidavit, this is the response. And then when I looked at the response, you get the top IT guys, they said, it cannot happen. You cannot use a wide area network to get to that. So all this is cooked up stuff. And the election, let's put it this way. At the presidential level, there is no democracy. The democracy increases as you go lower. At parliamentary level, maybe there is about 60% democracy, because maybe the will of the people counts for some. As you go lower and lower and lower, then the democracy increases, because now the stakes are. But the idea that Electoral Commission is shielded, very true, very shielded. And they are the only people rewarded for a work badly done. Rewarded with a by-election, which gives them more money and a bigger budget and a bigger opportunity for one returning officer to sit and declare the highest bidder as winner.
Well, do we look at past precedents in determining how this election is going to be managed? Past precedents, I mean, like Kayunga and Omoro.
Yes, you could look at it that way. But to be fair to Electoral Commission, I think they take a bit of the flack. But if you take a wide angle, the institutional setup, with the one we are running, the constitutional setup, it's also a lie. We say we are in a multi-party, in a system of multipartyism. Is that true? But a multi-party system where a party is allowed to exist at headquarters, but only one party is allowed to mobilize, to organize, to meet the people, to address. So we are back to the movement system, one-party system, but we have 4 more people, a leader of opposition with a flag, we have, so if the opposition cannot be allowed to operate, to organize beyond their headquarters, it follows that even during these by-elections, they will not be allowed to campaign. And so if you want, the problem comes from the institutional, the setup up there, from what the kind of multipartyism we have adopted. So we have a constitution without constitutionalism.
Yeah, but
secondly,
EC, yes,
the EC, if you go to the constitution, the way the constitution requires, Article 60, the qualifications of members of the EC, requires that shall be persons of high moral character, proven integrity, and shall possess considerable experience and demonstrated competence in the conduct of public affairs. Again, Simon, you are not an ordinary person on the streets. If I asked you to name, there are 7 members of the Electoral Commission, including the chairperson. If I asked you to name 5 of them, you would fail. Because again, these people are not subjected to a process that enables us to say, yes, these are the people that are able to do us this. These are people who are picked up by ruling party people from across the country, and they are put. We know that the approval processes, the sieving in Parliament, which is again constitutional, that Parliament shall approve, and is again a rubber stamp. So we miss that stage. So that's where it starts from. So these people are beholden to the people who put them there.
So the country is going into a by-election on a wrong premise.
Yes, okay? And so you have that. Then, if you come down to the level of the staff, again, the process, unfortunately, is not transparent. Our systems don't engender competence. And so you have somebody's son or daughter has been made returning officer. There are no sanctions. When you mess up an election, they'll say, okay, we cancel this election, or costs may be awarded to, but get who pays the cost. If costs are given against the EC, it is the coffers, the taxpayers. How I wish a time comes when the judge goes on to say, but of course there are laws that protect people who work in public affairs and this thing. But there should be a time to open this lid. If you've been found so much to be so incompetent, if you've messed up an election, it should be you to pay. As it is now, there's no sanction, it's just reward. I've messed up this election, I wait for the next one. And that's where it starts
As
from.
we take a break, how much does the EC have to contend with in regard to this particular Soroti by-election?
Well, what they need to know is that Soroti, the people of Soroti, and Soroti, I hesitate to call these places as city it is really, but let me use the word city for, you know, someone sits somewhere and say, you have created a city. Soroti,
If they can create middle income, why can't they create
the people of Soroti are generally have always been civically they are competent. I think they're above average in terms of knowing what they want. So the EC should know that they're going in an environment where people are very conscious, people follow, people are. So it's not going to be easy to play the usual games, but
Which games?
no, you allow a semblance of campaigns, but then on the run up to the election, you come and round up everybody. You know, the reason why there's drama on election day is because some candidates would try to put up vote protection mechanisms. Now that drama with people being abducted in unmarked cars is to enable to remove those people who are supposed to watch and to stop the malpractices. Those are supposed to be, and it starts from as sad as saying, you are not from this area. You are not from, what are you doing here? The laws of Uganda allow a Ugandan to be in any part of Uganda. If we say that we are in a multi-party system, my party has a candidate. Even if I'm from Kisoro and I'm in Karamoja in a campaign, you can't come and arrest me. Right, currently, I don't want to talk about a matter which is in police cells. I think this unfortunate incident at the university the other day when a student was killed. People were rounded up because you're an MP. What are you doing at the university? And that is the basis of, and this is a problem.
Okay, if you can allow me to take a very short break, and when we return, we'll certainly be looking at the things that EC has to contend with in the run-up to the big day, that will be 28th, in a very emotional election. Good morning.
They declare sand a natural resource, so people cannot even go and get sand, because now if it's a mineral, then it goes and has rules which are governing it, which are the same as other minerals. Then the natural resources board, which is really controlled by them, and then that's the end of it. So our people working from morning 8 a.m. up to 1 a.m. and being paid 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 shillings a day, and being called dogs. I mean, when are Ugandans ever going to get angry? Really, really, really. When are we ever going to get angry? Like, are we going to just sit back and behave as if because we have ties and what everything is okay, and somehow we think it will not come to us? Because it has gone across the country, and this is what we are trying to prove to you. The reason we have this press conference is to prove to you that the things that are going on across the country are the same. They declare sand a natural resource, so people cannot even go and get sand, because now if it's a mineral, then it goes and has rules which are governing it, which are the same as other minerals. Then the natural resources on our board, which is really controlled by them, and then that's the end of it. So our people working from morning 8 a.m. up to 1 a.m. and being paid 5, 6, 7,000 shillings a day and being called dogs. I mean, when are Ugandans ever going to get angry? Really, really, really. When are we ever going to get angry? Like, are we going to just sit back and behave as if because we have ties and what everything is okay, and somehow we think it will not come to us? Because it has gone across the country, and this is what we are trying to prove to you. The reason we have this press conference is to prove to you that the things that are going on across the country are the same. We shall fight for the Ugandan, and we shall not be compromised in our desire to liberate Ugandans from this economic civil war and from slavery. You know, the unfortunate thing is they are arresting people in Mayuge now, calling them ADF and Namayingo. And I told you that because of these minerals. You think they are going to be there and give people land in Mayuge? They will not. I mean, these rare minerals. And these are very, very precious things. And I told you this before it ever came out in the news. But I also told you that they are going to start arresting. And they are arresting them. They just come and round people up and take them. And then they say these are ADF. Just because they are Muslims and they are in an area which is rich. And of course, there are so many Muslims in Mayuge. And in an area which is rich in minerals. And they round up innocent young people and take them. We are not going to let Museveni shape this country according to his vision. He used to say he's the one with the vision. Now we know the vision is just to dispossess all Ugandans, give the nation to foreigners and his family. That's his vision. So we are not going to let him go ahead with this vision because we are so many people and we cannot sit back and all fear. Okay? The corporates are fearing because they have jobs to protect and so on, and they look nice in suits. The people at the bottom are hoping the other ones make noise for them, but they are not. The leaders are busy earning money because he turned politics into a money-making thing. As long as you come and have a salary, if you talk too much, you might be deprived of that salary, so you kind of be there. So he has divided all of us into segments, and each segment cares about its own, until need comes and says, no, even if none of us here is a fisherman, but the plight of fishermen on Lake Wamala is our business. Omuntu yenna afunye side effects ku vaccine. Ogenda bugenzi ku website firstvaccines.ug. Ogende koko otubulire erinnya lyo bw'oba oyagala n'ebirala ebifa oluvannyuma otubulire obuzibu bw'ofunye mu vaccine. Tusobole bidocumentinga bano abantu banaavaayo nga bagamba there is no evidence, tubaga evidence yino. Gundi baamugema n'afuna kino, gundi baamugema n'afuna kino. Kati abazadde abatutuukiridde okuva ku oyo omwana
There's a lot that we are questioning about the forthcoming Sorority East by-election, and it's actually informing our discussion this morning on the topical discussion regarding how the EC is going to man the whole affair. Paul, I know I must let you off, but I would imagine Joseph has a question for you. Joseph, what would you ask Paul?
What I want to ask him is security subject to Electoral Commission, or is the Electoral Commission subject to security? Because from what we know, it is the Electoral Commission that has full authority to run the election. And security is just there as an enabler. However, that is only in theory. In practice, security completely trumps the Electoral Commission in so many places that we know about. And even, for instance, in my case, during the presidential election, I have a letter from Electoral Commission giving me the right to go and consult voters on an intention to stand. And as soon as I step out of Kampala to go and consult voters, security comes and bundles and does not want me to do anything. And I present a letter from Electoral Commission and it's totally useless. They are not interested whatsoever in what Electoral Commission has to say. And I have a letter from Electoral Commission. So now who is in charge? Is it you or is it the security? That's what we want to know.
Paul, over to you.
Simon, thank you. And my brother Joseph, thanks for that. Of course, like I mentioned, we talked about security in the first segment. Even when we are organizing elections, we need to have law and order maintained and observed by all stakeholders. So there's a place for security. Of course, the Electoral Commission does not have a police force, or it's not a law enforcement agency. We organize and conduct elections, and during the conduct of elections, we need to ensure that the electoral environment is secured. And for that reason, we work with the Ghana Police as a lead agency in matters of security. I want to emphasize that there's a place for security. It doesn't mean that it is secure. We are the ones who organize and conduct these elections. But we work with many people. We work with security. We work with candidates. We work with the agents. We work with the supporters themselves. We work together. So everyone has a role. Security has a role. What we normally say and what I want to encourage is that lawful conduct is key. When you conduct yourself in a lawful manner, you do not have any problem. You can't get into any trouble with law enforcement. But I want to also emphasize that law enforcement remains in place even during elections. So even a nominated candidate is subject to the laws of Uganda, is subject to the laws of that area, the guidelines that have been made. You do not expect to conduct yourself outside the guidelines for a campaign, for example, and you think that you will not be intercepted and put to order or even arrested for that matter. So, but what we are sending out as a message is that let's observe the guidelines. When we observe the guidelines, we do not get any problem at all with law enforcement. When there is compliance with the laws in place, the regulations in place, traffic laws, for example, a candidate who takes his supporters or an agent to a marketplace, a non-gazetted place, or to clash with another candidate, definitely will face the wrath of law enforcement. You will be intercepted. So security has a place. We have a relationship with security. We lead. We are the ones who have organized these elections. But as we organize, we work with many people, the media, security, candidates, political parties, and the stakeholders, the people, the electorate themselves. So, Joseph, I want to answer you like that, and also to assure the people of Soroti East and the other areas where we are conducting by-elections that that compliance with the guidelines is key, and that's what will ensure a peaceful process. If a candidate or their supporters or agents conduct themselves in a manner that is inconsistent with the guidelines that have been set, definitely law enforcement will come in, and we don't want to see those incidences coming up.
Isn't it rather odd that the EC is not concerned about the high-handedness of security? Oh, sorry. Sorry, we've lost Paul, but I must really thank you for sparing time to speak to us. Well, the role of security comes out prominently in elections. What do you anticipate this time in the Soroti by-election? They started off on a smooth note.
It always starts on like that. This script has been played over again. So it will play like that until about the last day of campaigns, when a party leader who is also a head of state will show up, and then the election program will be disrupted for other candidates. They will not be allowed. And then come polling day, normally, if the presiding officials are switched, are changed from this and that, there's profiling, there's a lot that goes on. And then on polling day, there will be, of course, the usual stuff. It will be like a war zone. I started by asking, does the EC, are they watching what's happening in Kenya? Don't they think Kenya has a population that perhaps they are more than us? They have security, they have an army. Do they see the security taking on a larger and life role in the elections? I have not said anywhere that security has no place, but their role cannot overshadow. Incidentally, if you see the results over the numbers over time, and for me even those numbers, I have my doubts about them, but progressively you see many people shun elections, low voter turnout, low voter turnout. Someone needs to study this. I hasten to add that it could be one of the things that puts off people is the over-militarization and criminalization of elections. If you wake up your village, your sleepy village, all of a sudden people are being abducted, people are being beaten. Then when you go for election, people even tell you, we shall vote for you, but do you have means of protecting your vote?
Well,
and so,
if I can hold you there,
could
just a bit. Joseph, what do we contend with as a country as Soroti goes to the ballot?
First of all, looking at it from a broader perspective, the reality is that elections are a very, very messy process here, and I don't think, there is a movie that was called Runaway Jury, and they said verdicts are too important to be left to the jury. And it was all about somebody trying to mess up what the jury were going to. But now here we have a scenario where elections are too important to be left to voters. So there are so many other mechanizations that have to be brought in to make sure that the voters, this is too important for you. I mean, okay, you go and cast your ballot, but the reality is this is beyond you. And that is what we see, generally speaking. And we are not going to have elections in this as long as Museveni is still president and so on. And he's the one who has created this scenario where, I remember in 2006, I used to work for New Vision, and I was working very late in the night. So I was driving from home at night. There was almost nobody on the roads. But I saw a whole range of military vehicles just driving through the streets of Kampala. And as Jamboli said, in Kenya, don't they have, and I'm just driving home, and I'm saying, what is all this about? By the morning, the whole city is full of all manner of military vehicles that have been stored like God knows where, coming out from Nakasongola and so on, and just bombarding. And the message is that, you know what the message is. So the point is, elections are too important to be left to voters in this dispensation. Now, we hope that when dispensation of power goes, we can actually get back to a place where all it takes to win an election, as he said, some people ask you that we are going to vote for you, but how are you going to win? So even the voters know that their vote is not all that it takes. Because we are going to vote for you. How are you going to protect the vote? And now, previously, when opposition were winning almost every by-election, it was because they were doing mafia things and out-mafiaing the state. Okay? There were by-elections where opposition would pour people there and do everything mafia, and the state tries and fails to win an election for one of its candidates because the opposition.
So they lost the mafia script.
They lost. The opposition kind of mellowed a bit, and I don't know why, but they are not as vigilant as they. You remember a time when the opposition used to be very vigilant, winning elections in Nuero, winning elections in Bujiri, winning elections, and even going up to Western Uganda and winning elections using very mafia scripts, because if your opponent is not going to fight fair, you don't fight fair as well. So I don't know what happened to that unified opposition front to make sure that almost every by-election is won. We saw it in Omoro. Very clearly, opposition was not organized to out-muscle the mafias in that place. They actually rode through and found it very easy. But now, previously, before in an election like that, what was in Omoro, almost all top opposition people would be there, not campaigning for different candidates per party, but choosing one candidate, regardless of party, and then out-mafiaing the state. And I'm telling you, it wasn't easy for the state to win by elections.
Well, thank you very much, Joseph. Finally, Jabeli, is this an election, a constituency election? Is it anything that should grip the entire nation, or it is Soroti business?
No, I don't think. In a parliament of coming to 600 people, one constituency would not be a big deal. But then Ugandans,
but it's carrying a big sentiment.
Ugandans love drama, and it should sure serve us drama. So it will be the big deal in the context of
The big deal is about drama.
It's about drama. And, but before that, I just wanted to point out something that the EC, when we talk about Electoral Commission being in charge of elections, it's actually false also. Because the EC, all it does, it nominates you. They have a returning officer in a district, normally with an assistant and some skeletal staff, a typist. And perhaps that's all. Below that, you have county supervisors, constituency supervisors, you have parish supervisors, sub-county supervisors. Those are, in fact, someone needs to look at those ones. Normally, you stop at the EC. The EC will never even come down to a parish to deal with the problems there. There is a parish supervisor. How are these gotten? To whom are they responsible? To whom are they beholden? What interest do they serve? Next time we can talk about that. And those are the people who actually do the elections, who select presiding officers, who manage this, and with instructions.
Well, Joseph, your final take, is this an election the country should watch keenly?
Well, it is, because first of all, by-elections have played a big role in determining who has support in a different place. For instance, there was, you remember the woman MP for Hoima by-election, which had Museveni and almost all opposition people campaigning. The question was how far into opposition has Bunyoro moved, because they previously were a strong NRM constituency. Now that election was there to show that Bunyoro had shifted and was now a very strong opposition stronghold. So the by-election served those purposes. And then also, I mean, as Jabo said, of course, 540 MPs, one MP, that shouldn't be a big deal. But it is, because also it shows now who is in charge in Soroti. Because we know that Soroti has been a stronghold for FDC. And we know that Besigye is a very popular person there, and so on. So we want to see, everybody goes to see their pulling power in these by-elections. So what are these people's pulling power? How can they swing votes in different areas? So for reasons like that, it is effective. And then also, it is effective in, as I told you, seeing if the opposition is ready to out-muscle the movement in all their search. Because there have been instances where they have done that so well. There was one even where the president was so angry and he was complaining that they stole, the opposition cheated an election, and that's a good thing to hear Museveni saying the opposition cheated an election. It's like a known thief shouting that, you know, somebody has come and robbed him. So, so it was a nice, for me it was so good to hear Museveni lamenting that opposition cheated an election. It sounded so good. So, so it helps in that, gauging where the region is, has it shifted this side or shifted the other side. Apparently Museveni had big support in Soroti according to Yawakama's figures. So we want to see, we want to put those figures to test.
Well, thank you very much, Councillor Okello Jabweri, and thank you very much, Mr. Kabuleta, for coming in to share your views of what Soroti holds for the country and how much the Electoral Commission can do to put its act together. That's it from me. Have a lovely day.